Isabella Chan, thank you having you here. And we are in Bielefeld, 9th of July 2016, in the University. And you've been a guest referent from London. I would like to ask you before we begin with the interview, you introduce yourself, please.
So I'm Isabella Chan. I'm from London School of Economics. I flew to Bielefeld 2 days ago. I'm really grateful that you invited me here. It's a beautiful city, beautiful university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabella. Isabella, your abstract. I'm going to read 2 sentences, and I've got the first question. This presentation looks at the levels at which the need for equity, diversity, and inclusion is perceived at the London School of Economics. I would like you to sum up some from your lecture today. There were a lot of vital and important points. It's very hard to sum up, but maybe you try, please.
So at the London School of Economics, equity, diversity and inclusion became an important subject to our institution, and it is the plan that equity, diversity and inclusion to be mainstream, to be embedded into the culture of our organization. So we started looking at our equity, diversity and inclusion issues and established a strategy to deal with the mainstreaming of equity, diversity and inclusion. And that we conducted a gap analysis, we looked at our policies, we looked at our procedures, we looked at the processes we have in place, we analyzed data, we put mechanisms in place, and we recommended mechanisms in place. And these mechanisms to basically address inequalities in our institution, but mainly to also mainstream equality in the future. This also meant that we needed the buy-in of the senior management, and therefore our task force was led by our one of our professors, Professor Carola Frege, but also the acting director, the interim director, Professor Julia Black, and both of them led our the equity, diversity and inclusion initiatives into the institution. We looked at our policies and we saw whether our policies actually address the issues we've got. We looked at the training for all member of staff. We know we've got policies in place, but do we communicate these policies to our members of staff? Do we tell them what's required of them? Do we monitor what they do? Do we look at improvement, or probably not, of the issues that we identified by looking at the data? We conducted all staff survey, we conducted childcare survey, we looked at the needs of different people in our institution, and we put all of that in our equity, diversity and inclusion strategy. One of the biggest things that we did also applying for charter marks. So we applied for Athena's one, which is gender charter mark. We are going to apply for race equality charter mark. And also in September, we're going to apply for Stonewall Equality Index, which is for LGBT staff. And we are going to, through this application, we will be required to analyze data, to have an action plan in place to address inequality that persist in our society.
What does that mean? Sorry, what does that mean for the university as a not a whole structure, as a culture?
As a culture, we are moving more towards inclusive culture. We are moving towards a culture that welcomes everybody. We are moving towards a culture that actually does not discriminate, that tackles discrimination, harassment and bullying. We're moving towards a culture that welcomes people from different backgrounds, provide education for our future generations, and this education to be an education that would improve our society, improve our institution, and improve the whole world. But more importantly for our institution is actually looking at our reputation, enhancing our reputation, enhancing our research reputation, and enhancing our place as one of the highest universities, Russell Group universities in Britain and in the whole world.
You mentioned a lot of, as I said before, relevant, vital points. One of them is very, not eye but ear-catching, is widening participation. What does that mean for us in a higher education institution?
Yeah, so higher education institutions, and especially elite institutions, they have a culture of recruiting certain people from certain backgrounds with certain qualifications and so on. So widening participation is going out, first of all, to secondary schools, primary schools, to the community, bringing to their attention higher education, bringing to their attention what does that mean, how do you go to higher education, encouraging, for example, school students, women, to take mathematics, physics, chemistry, engineering studies so that they can go into science degrees. Looking at ethnic minority pupils and encouraging them to have taster sessions in the summer to come to do a summer school. Looking at especially people from deprived backgrounds, so from backgrounds that they don't normally go to universities. We look at this particular group that is underrepresented in higher education, and we encourage them to have taster sessions. We encourage them to look at the A-levels or GCSEs, i.e. the qualification that will bring them into the university. How can they shape that? We give them a taster of a university, and we recruit from these communities, the deprived communities, the ethnic minority communities, disabled people, women, and we look at intersectionalities, like women from ethnic minority background who are disabled. There is a huge underrepresentation in science degrees. So we go out and we encourage those people to look into higher education, to have a taster sessions in the summer, and then to recruit them eventually into our institution.
That's great. I would like to put a question in direction, namely trainers from professors, people who are very busy, and if you come with a new topic, they can't say, please don't bother me with this stuff. How do you deal with this people, with power people? It's very difficult, I think.
Yeah. It is very difficult for any people who are working in especially difficult area like equity, diversity and inclusion. A, to communicate the message, but B, to get the interest and the buy-in from higher people in high position, i.e. senior management, professorial level, and so on. But if we look at the business case and the moral case of equity, diversity, and inclusion, from a business case point of view, higher education is going to have to move with society, is going to have to move to be more inclusive, to eliminate discrimination, to foster good relations, for it to be able to compete in the world of academia. If we stay behind, then we are going to attract fewer people, because we are international institutions, so fewer people will want to come to our institution, a fewer member of staff who have got good research background, they look at our university and they see that we are behind, so they will not join our institution. In this field also, reputational issue, it could be at a risk. So if we don't actually move and we don't implement equity, diversity and inclusion, we could be taken to court, or there will be a case against the institution, or we will be reported in the newspapers on something that we don't do. And if that happens, then the institution will totally lose their reputation. Yes. And then it becomes very difficult to build this reputation. We are very good, like your university, University of Bielefeld, is very well known as being a university that encourages people to come into the university, that has got a good reputation in teaching, in research. You also want to be a world leader in being an inclusive institution, so that people keep coming to this institution and keep the reputation staying as it is and moving forward with it. The moral case, this is the business case. The moral case is that we are higher education institutions. We are educating and graduating future generations. If we do not implement equity, diversity and inclusion, and if we do not make our ways and teach people the concept of equity, diversity and inclusion, society will not change. Discrimination becomes very much embedded in our society and entrenched in our society, and that's why we have a moral duty to change these things, to promote equality of opportunity, to foster good relations between people, or otherwise we will fail to deliver what higher education deliver. We don't only deliver knowledge, we also deliver the knowledge of changing society into a better society.
That's great. The last question, please, Isabella. We mentioned a lot of points. One of them interesting me because of my work here at the university is to deal with students, not only with handicap, disability studies, other studies, cultural studies. All these are my stuff, but are other. One of your work and experience, can you give me a practical example about disabilities, not studies, disability people who want to achieve something, have difficulties? You tell me something about your task force. I understand a lot of things, but one I didn't understand still, the addressing those people, not only per mail, you only said something about inclusive website, inclusive other things, but I would like to hear a practical example.
Okay, practical examples of what the task force at the London School of Economics is doing is basically to communicate the message of we have to work on equity, diversity and inclusion. A message goes from the director of the institution, the vice chancellor, to tell people that we've got support networks for disabled people, for disabled students, for ethnic minority people, for gay, lesbian, bisexual and trans people. And we encourage our staff and students to participate in these networks. We always involve these networks in every work we do because we do not know how people feel, and therefore communicating with them, getting their views in shaping our policies, in shaping our procedures and practices is vitally important. Communicating with these people, give them empowerment that they are actually, they've got a say in the way the institution is running. Not only they are there in the institution, if there is something that we can do to improve what we do, then their voice is vitally important. We also have data. So we look at our data and we see underrepresentation, for example, as I showed in my slide, we have underrepresentation of disabled people in the institution. I am not quite sure whether it's underrepresentation because we don't recruit people, or is it lack of disclosure because people don't feel they want to disclose their disability. However, a communication will go out to encourage people to tell us about their identity, to tell us if there is something that they want us to do to change the culture of the institution. We have to build a culture of trust. We need our staff and students to trust, and also we need our managers to know how to manage diversity. It's not only putting the onuses on the person who's disabled or the ethnic minority, but us as an institution. We need to take responsibility of managing people appropriately, of providing the support that people need, and also meeting the needs of individuals.
Thank you, Isabella.
Thank you very much.
I do really appreciate, and have a nice stay here and a nice flight to London back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabella Chan.
It's really lovely. Thank you.